Welcome to the fourth panel session of the first BMR Virtual Recycling Conference. This panel will discuss the logistical challenges our sector is currently facing. There will be a 7-minute Q&A session once all three of the logistics specialists have spoken. Please take a moment now to locate the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. To help the moderator, please submit your questions whilst the speeches are being made. This session will be moderated by the amiable Mr. Shazad Shroff, the President and CEO of Sealink International Incorporated, a digital logistics service provider based in Texas. He has a master's degree in international logistics from the University of Plymouth, a lovely port city in my homeland in the UK, and he comes from a family with 3 generations of logistics experience. His grandfather first started a logistics business in Mumbai, India in 1921. Sealink currently operates in several locations throughout the United States and employs over 100 dedicated staff members. In the last 3 years, Sealink have been named as one of the fastest growing companies in the US by Incorporated Media. Not once, but 3 times. Shazad, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Susie, for the introduction. You've been very generous with your words, and I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Shazad Shroff. I'm the president of Sealink International Inc. As Susie just said, we are a freight forwarder based in the United States, and we work with hundreds of companies move their recyclable goods globally. When I was asked to be a moderator, I spoke to a few clients and asked them what is it that they would like to hear about. I also spoke to the shipping lines and asked them what is it that they want to share with their customers on this platform. So in conjunction with BMR, we have a panel of esteemed speakers discuss on issues that matter to you, the customer, and the shipping line the most. The topics of service reliability and abandoned containers seems to be on almost everyone's mind. At this time, please allow me the opportunity to introduce our panel members for this session. We have Grant Daly from Maersk, Stuart Sandlin from Hapag, and Eric Chance from Hyundai. Grant is responsible for the Maersk commodity and forwarders representation and activities in North America. It's a position he took up in 2015. Previously, he was the CEO of SAF Marine based in Copenhagen. Stuart is currently the Senior VP at Hapag based in Atlanta. Stuart returned back to Hapag after the merger with USC, where he was a president in North America. Eric Chance is currently the TP Westbound Trade Vice President at Hyundai's North America Corporate here in Dallas. And it's worthwhile for me to mention that Hyundai is now the proud owner of the world's largest container ship at 24,000 TEU. So welcome Stuart, Grant, Eric to this panel. I appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Grant, let's dive into the first topic of discussion that's on everyone's mind. We've seen so many blank sailings this year for various reasons: COVID, plunging demand, volatile fuel prices. How do you expect the customers to plan their supply chain if the schedules are so erratic? Container availability is spotty at best at so many locations. Freight rates are not dropping to match the drop in the value of the commodity being shipped. Can you give us some insight?
Yeah, thank you, Shazad, and also thank you for the opportunity to participate in this forum today. You know, the challenge you outline for me is really where the proposition of reliability becomes so critically important, and that is reliability in both ways, to carriers and to customers. As a customer, you need a confidence that your cargo will load, that you'll have access to equipment. And as a carrier, we need a confidence that the cargo that is booked will actually deliver and materialize. You know, in a volatile market, containing your costs is vital. I think that's a reality everyone in this forum can relate to very closely, especially right now. You know, one of our 3 priorities in this epidemic has been to make sure that we serve our customers and keep your supply chains flowing. But in order for us to deliver that, and also for other carriers to enable them to deliver, we need to have the best informed view possible on, you know, what the revised or the forecasted demand is, so that we can plan our deployment accordingly, you know, that we can plan the available equipment provisioning and focus on delivering a reliable and a sustainable transport solution. I can totally understand, where there is a concern in a period of high volatility, that a shipper may want to book across whatever capacity is available, place multiple bookings for the same cargo on multiple different carriers. The reality, though, is that will only further undermine the sustainability of a product and worsen the actual existing challenge and concern or fear that is out there. So for us, knowing that we can rely on the intelligence we receive and the engagements with you, for us to have a confidence that the bookings that are placed will actually materialize, that really enables us to deliver on our promise. We can take informed decisions, manage our costs, and make sure that we have a sustainable product that is in place. And that's really where you can help us help you, if you will. It's for that reason too, we've worked closely with many of our customers and also introduced a number of products into the market recently, all of which are really anchored around a two-way commitment, right? Which is totally focused at reliability in both directions. Because ultimately, when we take that volatility out of our engagement and relationship, is where we can provide a more consistent and sustainable product.
Thanks, Ryan. So I have a follow-up question on something you just said, and that goes exactly, that opposes exactly what you just said. Is like when a customer books equipment across multiple carriers, which is what is causing a lot of this congestion. But the customers are also left in a lurch at times because carriers cancel booking at the last minute. How do you expect customers to plan when they don't know if a carrier is going to cancel on them or not?
It's exactly to the same point of reliability, and I mentioned that it goes in both directions. I mean, in a pragmatic manner right now, I also alluded to the fact that we have introduced a number of products right now, which are really focused on this two-way commitment, where effectively both the carrier and the shipper have equal skin in the game in making sure that, as a carrier, we provide the equipment and the capacity. And then we have an accountability towards you financially as well if we don't do that. And for us, expecting the same in reverse, right? So it's trying to encourage that we have that two-way commitment, that we can build on that reliability, that confidence and the trust, that when you make a booking, you will get access to it. And at the same time, when you make a booking, we know that we can plan our vessels and our deployment accordingly.
Thanks, Grant. That was helpful. Let's hear it from the Germans. Stuart, do you think Hapag agrees with this assessment? And what's Hapag's take on creating value of reliability with all these blank sailings and spotty container availabilities?
Sure. I agree with Grant very much in the fact that now is a great time for us to talk about how do we enhance the partnership and accountability on both sides. I think we as Hapag-Lloyd believe that that mutual accountability results in better service for both the customer and for better reliability from the carrier perspective. To be clear, I think that customers want stable supply chains to meet the stable demand or to be able to fix the customer's needs in an expected transit time and a service delivery. What we've really seen is that COVID-19 has really disrupted on the supply side, on the demand side, and on the logistics side. I think this really creates a very difficult challenge to be able to do that. I do also agree with Grant that the fall down is a real issue for us. We currently overbook a lot of our ships, which are in trades that are heavy in recyclables, by more than 50%. We have one service where we overbook it by 85% with the expected fall down, hoping to bring us still to the 100% capacity level. And when we look at that, we still sometimes sail light on that, even with the overbooking with that. That goes to Grant's comments specifically on in certain commodity segments, we have to have more reliability that the bookings that are being placed on our service are going to show up. When we talk about mutual accountability, that's certainly something that doesn't exist today. If you look at airfare, if you book a flight and you don't show up for that flight, you still have some exposure there. But in the liner shipping world, that doesn't happen. And if you book an airfare and the airplane is canceled, then normally there's some sort of restitution for the flyer as well. So maybe we should look at some sort of an avenue where we do have a better mutual accountability, and I would encourage those conversations to continue as we evolve our industry into being a more modern industry, more focused on managing the expectations of service and demand. I would also say that for me, the blank sailings really are intended to match and pair supply with demand. With our consolidation industry over the last several years, that this is something we see more now than ever, that the capacity does more closely match our demand, especially on the head haul trades, which actually pay for the bulk of the services. If you look at the backhaul trades, which have been unusually strong during this crisis, those really are the ones feeling a little bit of the space pinch. And I'm quite confident that many of the participants on this particular meeting are feeling a little bit of that, which causes and exacerbates the challenge of the blank sailing of the ghost bookings. So that's certainly something that we would highlight. There are 4 things that I would say that we should do and that I would recommend to the participants on this call to try to help manage kind of through this uncertain times of random blank sailings. Number 1, I would say that we have to create a more flexible supply chain. And this really, for me, involves in how you contract and how you sell the commodities in a forward-looking market. Right now, there's very stiff penalties of certainly in a commodity market where the price changes after the time of the sale, where the buyer and the seller don't really have mirrored interest there. I would say you need more flexibility in that. Number 2, while it's very difficult in a commodity market, you have to think about how do you create a buffer stock that's closer to the market so you reduce your lead time as you try to get those goods to market. The third thing is how do you increase your lead times to enable for some flexibility if a sailing is blank with short notice? How do you overcome that? And the fourth thing I would say, which is not really rocket science, is sign up for the push notifications of your carrier partners so that you get the information as soon as possible so that you can adapt and react. Supply chains today need to be more flexible than ever before, and I think that this is one thing that we at HAPAG would just encourage you to think about. How do you create your supply chain more flexible, not more rigid? You need more flexibility to account for the changing environment.
Thanks, Stuart. So to follow up on something that you just said, what is HAPAG doing in order for, like we just heard from Grant, that there is a program in place that there is reliability assured through a punitive method where Maersk will pay you in case you book with them and you do not do that. What is HAPAG doing in such circumstances? Is something coming up? Is something already in place that we're not aware of?
Sure. Something definitely exists for us today, Shahzad. It's a great question. We also agree in mutual accountability. We have shipping guarantees that you can also purchase with Hapag-Lloyd, which will do the exact same thing that Grant said. We think that this is a good product. I would say candidly, I don't know that the shipping guarantee is going to find a valid market within this particular audience due to the low price of the commodity market and the percentage of cost of landed goods as it relates to the shipping guarantee. But I believe, again, I think that this is a discussion that we should have. We think that mutual accountability is the way forward. And I would also say that in the consolidated world of liner shipping where we are today, as it compares to years past, it's more important than ever to have true partnerships with the carrier base, which certainly seems to be and require additional communication.
Thank you, Stuart. Eric, Honda is an extremely large player in Asia, particularly in North and Southeast Asia, which is a net buyer of recyclables from Europe and Americas. The mills run a risk of closing down when carriers do not have weekly sailings. Can you explain the rationale behind Hyundai's thoughts on blank sailings?
Well, let me say that I've been in the industry for 20 years, and I feel like over the last 6 months, I've lived and experienced all the troubles of the shipping industry within a short period of time. It's definitely quite volatile because of COVID-19. We're very sympathetic to our customers and the disruptions to the supply chain. We're right there with you, trying to work through the disruptions. I would like to say that HMM does care about reliability, schedule reliability. In 2019, we were number 3 globally in terms of schedule reliability, according to Sea Intelligence. Now, our plans for schedule reliability in 2020 were disrupted because of COVID-19. So there were 3 major reasons for the schedule disruptions: the blank sailings, of course, the sharp cargo drop once COVID-19 popped its ugly head, 18.5% drop in volume between Asia and the U.S., or Asia to the U.S. IHS Markit is predicting a 10% drop in global volume for the year. This resulted in, I idling of the global fleet of about 11.2% up until June, according to Alphaliner. So the sharp cargo drop led to the idling ships. We just can't sail ships empty. And number two, the IMO 2020 mandate. It seems like ancient history now, but January 1st, the International Maritime Organization implemented the new mandate for low sulfur fuel. This caused, actually most of our ships are going to be fitted with scrubbers. We started the fitting of the scrubbers because we care about the environment, where we want to comply with the mandate. So in January and February, most of our fleet went into plans for fitting of the scrubbers. By early May, I heard that about 30% of the fleet was docked for scrubber fitting. So that also led to the idling of the fleet. And then number three, so unique to HMM situation, we transitioned in April from our alliance with Maersk and MSC to the alliance with Hapag, Yang and ONE. So that caused more disruption, a lot of things happening at the same time with the COVID-19. Really, the peak period of the disruption for COVID-19 was occurring at the same time we were making a transition in terminals, ports, and services. So those three things really impacted our schedule of reliability. How we reacted to it, especially here in the US, we increased our communication with our metal scrap shippers. So we every week we provided a weekly schedule for our metal scrap shippers. We believe that open communication and a lot of communication during these chaotic times is important, so that you can plan accordingly. And then secondly, I think the other members of the panel made reference to fall down. Of course, fall down has been a real big problem for HMM. And how we've reacted to it is there are digital platforms out there where we've entered into agreements and commitments with customers with penalties for fall down from either side. So that's helped to improve our fall down ratio, but it's still a big problem for us.
Thank you, Eric. So from what I understand from all the three panelists out here is that fall down seems to be a big issue across the board. Is this a problem just from North America, or is it a problem that you have seen across the world globally? Maybe I can ask Eric to say first.
What was that again? The fall down globally?
Is the fall down that you have noticed, is that just from North America, or is the fall down across the globe pretty much the same?
I can't really speak to globally. I'm not sure exactly what my trade colleagues overseas are experiencing. I can only speak to the US. Here we are, I think Stuart mentioned maybe percentages of how much they have to overbook. On some lanes, we have to book up to 200% to get that 100% BSA utilization. So it's just extremely challenging. I assume that the other trades are probably experiencing the same kind of fall down. Now, we're not experiencing that kind of fall down across all lanes, but overall, from the US to Asia, we experience about 40 to 50% fall down. Metal scrap can be one of those commodities with very high fall down that probably exceeds that 50%. It's extremely disruptive to our space management. So definitely, I would assume that the Asia-Europe trade is probably experiencing something similar.
Thank you. Grant, you also concur with Eric on this?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, I think it's not unique to the North American market at all. We see it consistently in all areas and across all trades. Obviously, there'll be some variation depending on the seasonality. But I would absolutely agree that, yes, it is an issue globally in all geographies and on all trades.
Thank you. Stuart?
I would agree as well. I would tell you it's very interesting that the fall down percentage gets much, much higher when the ships are full. And it's for the exact reason that Grant mentioned, that more people are making the ghost bookings than do when the ships are open. If the ships are open, you have less ghost bookings. But the second the ships fill up, the amount of non-realized cargo goes up. The other thing I would say, which was quite interesting, is when COVID happened, our actual fall down percentage dropped dramatically is I think that everyone was expecting a drop in the demand at the destination side for the backhaul markets. And so as such, the fall down percentage went way down. And then about 3 weeks later, then the fall down percentage started to continue to rise as the space became less available on the backhaul lanes. But it was a very unique phenomenon. I don't think I expected at that point that the fall down percentage would go down so much, but indeed it did. But this is a unique situation, and I would say right now on the backhaul trades, all trades globally are pretty full. So right now the fall down percentage of recyclable materials is very, very high.
Thank you, Stuart.
Shahzad, just one more comment on that. The primary reason we hear from customers in regards to the fall down is product not ready. So we are seeing from our customers that maybe COVID-19 is impacting their facilities, their labor. So we haven't really been punishing anyone or chastising our customers in terms of the fall down because we understand the situation that's going on.
Thank you, Eric. I believe both the audience and me now understand your positions, and hopefully we can plan our cargoes in a better way. Coming to our next topic, I really have a double-headed question. This is a topic which is sensitive to both the carriers like yourself and to the consumers listening to us right now. So the first part, how difficult is it for the shipping companies when there is a lockdown in discharge port? In countries like India, which shut down part of the supply chain like transportation and warehouses, but expected ports and shipping companies to work as essential services. This obviously leads to an unequal weight distribution between all the stakeholders in the supply chain. On the other side, no other country shut down parts of the supply chain while imposing lockdowns. But in any case, due to disruption in services, containers do not get picked up within the allocated free time. Then facing mounting detention, importers of lower value goods prefer abandoning their shipments. What challenges do you as carriers have? Who faces the consequences in such cases when the cargo gets abandoned? Stuart, would you like to share your thoughts with me?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again, Shahzad. I think that this is a really difficult thing. I think that COVID has been challenging and continues to be challenging. Liner shipping is deemed to be an essential service because that's how we get the medical and food and other necessary items to the consumers to really enable society to continue. I think that this is especially challenging where most parts of the world have allowed most aspects of the supply chains and of service delivery to be essential. It gets really challenging though when whether the end customer can't accept it because their warehouses are closed or because, as in the case of India, where there's been a tremendous shutdown and lockdown, so there's no access to the trucker or there are impediments in the delivery of the goods. So I think that this is a real big challenge for us as it relates to liner shipping being an essential service, as it is part of a supply chain. And if one link of the supply chain is not working, then the whole process flow kind of falls down. The bottom line is that this does impact velocity, which impacts everybody. The one thing I would say is that most people, most customers, most end consumers, most suppliers, most carriers, most service providers all want velocity across the supply chain. You want the movement of those goods. You want asset utilization. You want those things to be very high. When you have a lockdown or blank sailings or your containers being caught up as blank warehouses because the warehouses won't be able to open, that certainly creates a challenge for us. So my feedback would be is that I think that we all kind of bear the burden of that, and I think that that's certainly something that we need to continue to address. To our point, we have worked hard while liner shipping is our core competence. We have worked to try to find off-dock CYs. We have tried to work on more innovative solutions that are outside of our core competency to try to give some sort of flexibility into how customers can utilize us to leverage that supply chain. So I see from some of the comments that clearly that might not be felt across the board. And I would just say that we need to just continue that dialogue at the local level to figure out how we can continue to address those challenges and figure out kind of what we can do there. So I would say that it impacts all supply chain members across the board, from logistics providers to suppliers and consuming customers at the back end.
Thank you, Stuart. Eric, would you like to chime in?
Well, we understand that in times of lockdowns, container or commodity embargoes and whatnot, our customers are between a rock and a hard place. So it's critical in those moments that we listen. We don't ignore the pleas for help. We listen and discuss and come up with solutions. So again, it comes back to, I mean, we're empathetic with the issues going on in the industry and the problems that our customers are facing. So I don't want to go into too much of a litany of our troubles from a carrier side. I can touch on it a little bit, but kind of piggybacking on what Stuart mentioned about velocity, we got to keep our containers moving. When they're idling at ports, they're not generating revenue for us. But when they're idling at ports, we may actually have to lease other containers to supply that equipment for other customers that are shipping, right? So that's a cost. Not to mention the man hours needed to resolve the issues, the back forth, the negotiations, with customs, with the governments, the warehouse, everyone involved in the supply chain. Some way or another, the carrier has contact with those entities. It takes a lot of man hours to resolve these issues. So the consequence to all of that is that containers aren't in the right locations. So it's going to impact the shippers, whether their commodity or their cargo is idling at the destination, or there's an EQ shortage at origin and they can't get the equipment they need to ship more product to other destinations. So it's kind of a vicious circle there. So, and then one other core issue for our own labor, our clerks who are processing the bookings and the documentation, they can't focus on their core job function because they're working on trying to resolve these very complicated issues at the destination side.
Understand. That was helpful. So Grant, as the world's largest shipping company, how do you guys see this?
I think it's a great question, and I think it's a very real challenge, you know, as my colleagues have also made reference to. You know, I mean, from our point, in our view, I mean, our focus and commitment is really to try and keep our customer supply chains moving, right? And to make sure we deliver on the promise that we have. First and foremost, you know, that's making sure we deliver to the terms of the contractual agreement and also the contract of carriage as part of that. Practically, that means doing all that we can to focus on keeping the infrastructure as uncongested as we can. You know, keeping our operations active, keeping our people accessible, be that working from home or not. We're very proud that we've been able to do that. We feel particularly effectively through this period with all the associated challenges of that. I mean, the operations and the accessibility of the people, I think, has been fantastic. To build a bit on what Stuart was referencing to as well, we've also worked extensively and very closely with our customers to develop and offer alternate products, you know, be that expanding up or down the supply chain, focusing on any area we can to remove part of the risk of the volatility. You know, that might mean speeding your cargo up. It might mean slowing your cargo down. It may mean, you know, to an earlier point of, you know, building a supply closer to the destination, be it a delay in transit in a transshipment point. You know, it could include offering landside logistical solutions, you know, offering store door solutions. Let us take the risk of the trucking supply, if you will. You know, working on finding alternative off-dock storage areas. So really anything that we can do to keep the infrastructure open, to keep the velocity, the movement of the cargo, the movement of the supply chains flowing. That's really where our focus has been. So it's not a silver bullet. There's not a single answer to it. We absolutely recognize the challenge. And we also remain committed to being creative as how we can partner together to overcome some of these issues. But ultimately, in terms of the liability and who bears it, it is a challenge that everyone in the supply chain and in the industry faces. And our commitment to that is to do what we can, first and foremost, to deliver on the terms of the contract of carriage. And we expect the same in return. So
we understand that the liability ultimately falls on the shipper when these things happen. But as in all the recyclable products that have been shipped across the globe, it's not black and white. Customs issues involved, lockdowns, partial lockdowns, and so on and so forth. If you look at the chat room that's going back and forth, a lot of these people come up and want to discuss their personal issues, which we do not want to do that. We want to talk about the industry at large. But what does the consumer who does not understand the shipping terms understand when he abandons a shipment? Who do you believe, or who do you know is at the end of the day responsible when a container gets abandoned?
You would like me to go?
Sure.
You know, I mean, for us, it really is the contractual document that we have. You know, the contract of carriage, the bill of lading, and the obligations and the liabilities of that is really what we work to. You know, as I said, I mean, we try to listen, we engage, we try to understand what the issues are, to find alternate solutions to keeping it moving. But we've entered into a contract of carriage in good faith. We expect the other parties of their contract and carriage to fulfill their obligations equally. I don't think it is reasonable at all to expect the service provider to assume the full risk. You know, we need to listen, we need to understand, we need to be creative, but I don't think it's reasonable at all to expect that full liability to sit on your service provider.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share any other things that they would like to talk about on this panel today? Stuart, Eric, Grant?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I really appreciate Grant's answer, because I think that answer is really valid. The challenge we have specifically as it relates to recyclable materials is that if we get an abandoned container too long, we won't end up doing that, because what happens clearly is that if the lower price value of the recycled material is less than the amount of the charges due, then somebody just says it's better for me economically to just ditch that. I mean, I think this is why a lot of customers and buyers and sellers work with letter of credit. But we have a contract of carriage, which does not necessarily mean we're getting all of our charges up front and then we're doing that backwards. So I think that that's really relevant. And I would just say that consistent supply chains involve consistent customers and consistent customers following through on their side of the obligation. So, I mean, from my standpoint, I think that that's really valuable, and I appreciate Grant's response to that.
Thank you. Eric, would you like to add anything?
Just one short comment. I think that there could be a perception that carriers gain from idling containers or abandoned cargo when we sell it. Well, we're going to make some profit from it, or from our detention charges. That is not the case at all. At the end of the day, these troubles with idling containers and abandoned cargo is always a loss for the carriers. Loss of time, loss of finances. We never gain from it. We try to avoid it if we can at all possibility. So I just want to emphasize that to the metal scrap shippers, that even though you may seem like we're gaining from it, we're not at all. So
I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. This was very helpful. So, do we have time for Q&A right now? I believe we do. So, a lot of
I think we're actually out of time now, Shazad.
Are we? Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate Grant, Stuart, Eric. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to all the panelists for being here. I apologize we couldn't get to all our Q&As on time, as we did have some very, very good points to discuss, and hope that has been helpful in your understanding. On my part, I will be sharing all the questions on the chat with the individuals with all the panelists over here, and hopefully I can try and come back to you with an answer on some of the questions that you have raised. Thank you. Susie, thank you for being a generous host. I appreciate that.
Many thanks, Shazad, and your panel of logistics specialists, Eric, Grant, and Stuart. Your attendance is much appreciated. We now have a video from our expert speaker, Mr. Ahsan Gadawala. Mr. Gadawala is the chairman of ALA International, based in Mumbai, India. He is an ambassador for the Bureau of International Recycling and is a director of the board for the Material Recycling Association of India. So is well placed to tell us of the challenges in logistics Indian importers and exporters are currently facing. Please play the video.
Hello everyone. It feels different to greet all the recyclers like this is on the innovative platform, but is rarely said by someone. The changes is the only concern things in the life. We all have to adapt and change constantly, resolve ourselves in our businesses. To start with, myself, Ehsan Ajim Garawala, the chairman of Ala International, owning metal business of plastic and metal recycling from the last 3 decades. I'm a director and a founder of an MRAI in India. I'm also the ambassador for BIR to India. I would first like to thank BMR for inviting me for this opportunity to be the part of the estimated expert panel. The panel discussed about the challenges in the logistics, which is faced by the recycling fraternity. It's a very interesting topic, and I'm truly impressed by the points which the panelists have already covered during the panel discussion. I am quite certain is useful for all the delegates who have joined. As we are all aware, during the pandemic, one of the biggest challenges faced by the recycling industries was logistics. And not to mention the other relevant issues like demand, distribution, supply, trade issues, war market viability, currency fluctuations, courier services, banking, services, labor issues, and of course maintaining the social distancing in all the crowded places. A lot of plants and machineries and factories were closed or are functioning in a very low capacities. Challenging during the pandemic are the rarest in the nature. The logistic challenge which has impacted the recycling industry throughout the world. The recycling commodity moves in a large scale by containers and then the bulk vessels worldwide throughout the shipping lines, as we all consider relationship between and exporters and the importers with the shipping lines are good as body and soul. Most of the shipping lines gave their full supports and the customers keeping very long-term business relations, especially given the current situation. India is particularly very badly impacted due to the most of the longer lockdown which affected most of the recycling materials such as ferrous and non-ferrous metals, plastic waste, and paper and other cargoes were bearing a very additional burden of detentions and downtime. Hence, the situation was turning from bad to worse. However, during the struggling time, most of the recycling associations, especially MRAI, who has come forward and helped the recycling by getting the maximum special approvals and damage detention waivers from many authorities, including a lot of government and individuals and shipping lines, and getting waivers and a lot of during the lockdown. I have different approach for the entire case. As this pandemic was not known in advance to whether it is a buyer or a shipper or shipping line, CFS, many others partly involved in the entire logistics and supply chains. Some shipping lines, most CFS, tried to extract the maximum amount by way and other way, which like to be appreciated. I would like to appreciate the method adopted by some of the shipping lines and their association with their fixed reasonable slabs and rates, and we on weekly basis, which has helped majority of our importers through the smooth functioning. If the similar practice was adopted by some of the shipping lines who have not done, and by CFS, the entire solution and situation would have been better. We hope the representative of all the shipping line and the recycler community have given us clear message, loud and clear, whether this would like to clear. I would like to also thank the panelists for discussing such an important topic, which has given a great insight for the industry, and especially my special thanks to my dear friend Sajjad Shroff, President C-Link International USA, who have put his hard efforts taking this initiative and buying from his busy schedule, arranging a lot of good panelists. I would have been possible without his support. Thank you once again, all of you, support and cooperation. I would like to thank and end my speech with a very positive note and with a prayer that everyone stay safe, healthy, request everyone to maintain the social distancing and take call of necessary precautions. Stay safe, healthy, indoor. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Gurrawala. I will now hand you over to Mr. Mutshaba.
Hi, Susie. It's really very tiring day for you, I can understand. Nevertheless, I thank Shahzad and the whole dignitaries over here present. It has been very informative and people could really learn how the logistics and the problems could really be challenging, but same time solving also. Especially Mr. Grant, Mr. Eric, Mr. Stott, and overall Shahzad, excellent job. We highly appreciate you all joining us in BMR. Thank you once again. And Susie, please don't leave. The main thing is that we have basically a gift announcement. BMR is very generous in announcing gifts. So we have exceeded what we expected the delegates to be. We don't have a system now that we can pick up who's the lucky winner, but something I heard from my kids saying that there's a nutcracker or something, with the number will come from the computer system. So I'm going to work with my kids, hopefully tomorrow, and see who are the lucky winners are. We have 3 gifts. One gift is any company will get, the lowest gift is they'll get a membership free for BMR for next year. Second gift is that they will get a BMR membership along with 1 delegate free. And the bumper gift is they will get membership along with delegate free and also 2-night hotel stay of any BMR conference whenever we organize it. So this is what is the best announcement we have for the day. And before I pass it on to Mr. Muzammil Haji Amin, who is the Secretary General, I personally, very personally thank Suzy Buraj for accepting our invitation. And we highly appreciate the way you performed it. And we look forward for a bigger association. Behind stands my president too, to say thank you. Big thanks, Suzy.
Thank you. You're very gracious with your words. I feel hugely privileged to have been asked to be part of this pioneering event. I've enjoyed enormously the experience and gained valuable knowledge from your plethora of expert panelists and speakers. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Check care. And Mr. Haji Amin, please. Muzammil Bhai.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. As a founder member and Secretary General of BMR, and being in recycling industry for last 30 years, I'm also a president of ALA Group and one of the team member of BMR Virtual Committee. It's my privilege to conclude this conference with a word of thanks. My sincere thanks to Honorable President Mr. Nasir Aboura, Vice President Mr. Mir Mustafa, and the whole board members of BMR who were involved and been part of the conference. My sincere thanks to the dynamic host of this event, Miss Suzy. I wanted to express my heartfelt thanks to the best panel speakers, moderators from across the world, including the part of the recycling industry like shipping industry, for discussing on important topics, sharing their views, which I am sure will help our listeners to get updated with the current situation. Special thanks to market update presentation given by Mr. Edward Neer. Heartfelt thanks to the guest speakers and experts, without whom this conference would have been incompleted. I'd like to thank BIR, ISRI, MRAI, and the other partner associations for giving the continuous support. I'd like to thank our respected sponsors, exhibitors, and media partners whom really trusted us on a one phone call. They have accepted and joined hands to support us. I'd like to thank BMR representatives who are always been backbone. I thank our board members and virtual conference team and head of this team, Captain. We given him title called Captain Fadi Aboud from Eurogulf, Jordan, who have taken whole task as a mission. And with a lot of efforts, along with admin team, Mr. Hassan and Ms. Sheena, made this successful. I like to thank Mr. Rajesh of Action Design, India, and the digital platform team VFairs for inspiring us to make recycling conference to go digital. My heartfelt thanks to all the delegates who registered for the conference and made our conference a great success. And I hope all the delegates must have been fully benefited by the different information received from the conference virtually at the comfort of their own home and office. BMR conference does not end here today, but you can still keep in touch and connected through a digital way by mobile app and enjoy meeting with traders, the recyclers, the machine manufacturers, and the service providers. I invite you all to join us on 22nd and 23rd of 2020 for the 9th BMR International Conference, which is going to be held in Intercontinental Hotel, Dubai. Thank you once again and wish you all the safe and healthy life, and request you to follow the government regulation to help yourself and others to fight against COVID-19. See you all on 22nd November 2020, and bye for now. Thank you.
Before I end the session, it will not be really fair unless I call the captain of our total conference, Mr. Fadi Aboud, to join us and give a few words. Mr. Fadi Aboud has woken us up at morning 6 o'clock, night 2 o'clock, 8 o'clock, my dinner time, anybody's breakfast time. He didn't care. He says, this is what is our importance. And Fadi, without you and your leadership in having a captain, this ship wouldn't have been sailed properly. I highly appreciate Fadi, and may I call upon Fadi to say a few words before we close the session.
Hi, Fadi.
Everybody.
Hello, Captain. Hello, Fadi.
Thank you very much for everything. I'm not sure but I was asked to give a speech, then I'll give it short and neat. For some reason, someone asked me to wear a red shirt, so here I am in red. For those who doesn't know me, my name is Fadi Aboud. I used to have a long hair before signing up for this project, and now you can see the results. It all started in March during the lockdown. We were all locked at home and stuck, so we urged her to find a way to get ourselves out of this isolation. And this is where it all begins. And now we gather to success our breakthrough and our success with everyone. I would like to give a special thanks to my team and everyone who was involved in this project. A special thanks to my dear brother Mir for his support, for Rajesh Gupta, our maestro and IT developer, Jafar Bhai and Reza for the app. Special thanks to Hassan and Sheena, and not to forget the troublemaker and mixer objection, Muzamil Amin. Please visit our work, please visit our exhibit, and please enjoy networking. This platform will be open for 30 days. And again, thank you very much for your support, and good night. God bless you.
Thanks, Suzy. Once again, thanks, and stay blessed, stay healthy, and good business with BMR app. All the best. Thank you all once again.
Have a great dinner at BMR's account. Okay, send us the bill.
Thank you all, everybody. Thank you.